All right, everyone, welcome back to the Brad and Kyle channel, and today we're going to be talking about how to increase your rev rate. Stay tuned.
So one of the biggest things everyone in bowling wants to do, well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people want to learn how to increase their rev rate. I mean, we would even love to gain another 50 RPMs on the ball. It would be amazing. It'd be life-changing. But unfortunately, increasing your rev rate is one of the hardest things to do. But we're going to talk about some key factors that do go into producing more RPMs. Now, one of the things you hear a lot, especially in the bowling world, is that yo-yo effect. Which is correct. Yes. You do need the yo-yo effect, but we're going to take a step back and look at the steps that go into creating that yo-yo effect and getting into the right positions in order to get that release. So Brad, what is the, I guess, first things we need to think about to try to get into that yo-yo?
Well, the thing is your wrist has to be cupped. If you have a flat wrist, it becomes very, very hard to put anything on a bowling ball. If your wrist is cupped, then the hand's under it, and then you can actually do something. But if you take a ball, if you take a ball and your elbow is completely straight, and then you try and get that wrist under the ball, that puts a ton of strain right here on your wrist. And you have to have an extremely strong forearm to do that, and it becomes very, very tough. So to take some pressure off these wrist muscles, bending your elbow actually helps you get more under the ball without having to use these muscles, and it's very natural. Your elbow bends without any, you know.
So we're essentially using a combination of wrist bend and elbow bend to get under the bowling ball.
And I know we've preached it in plenty of videos to get your wrist and hand under that bowling ball. But like I said, it's hard to do it without a bent wrist. So if you're trying to do it with a straight arm, it becomes very difficult and you become very injury prone. So what you want is to get that elbow cupped along with the wrist. It makes it so much easier to get your hand under the ball.
Right, and by getting that hand under the ball, that gets us in a good leverage spot at the end so our hand can rotate through.
Because then you can actually control how many revs you put on it. If your hand's on top of it, the ball has the gravity and it controls you.
And that's one of the big reasons you see two-handers are able to hit the ball so hard, is because they're naturally under it. They got their elbow naturally cupped, the wrist cupped, and they're just under it the entire time, and they can create so much leverage.
Yeah, so the cupped wrist, hand under the ball, once that happens, you can choose, it could be slow and gradual release, or it can be a very fast release. Now, obviously, the faster it is, the more revolutions you're going to be able to put on the ball. But it becomes extra important to make sure everything is in its place, because if you try and speed up your release with your hand on top of it, it's going to fall off your thumb every single time, because all you're doing is speeding up the speed of your thumb exiting the ball, because the ball has the gravity. It's just going to fall down. So before you can try and speed up that yo-yo, you have to make sure that your hand and wrist and elbow are all under the ball.
Yeah, so now that we kind of know the position we need to get in as far as creating good leverage, let's talk about that little yo-yo release. Now, we do want to, at the end, once we're all coiled up with some combination of our elbow and wrist, you know, there's different ways. Some people bend their elbow a little bit more, you can bend your wrist a little bit more, but then once we get to the bottom here and we're all, I guess, coiled up, we want to uncoil. Like you're, flicking a yo-yo. A lot of people think when you want to hit the ball that you need to hit up on it like this. And that's really the opposite effect. We want to get this coil motion going on, and then we just want to uncoil. So let's get from the side here. We want to be coiled up, and then we just want to uncoil at the bottom.
Yeah, I would say that if you're trying to put extra revs on the ball and it's not working, or if you're forced to hit up on it as you release it, then you're not getting yourself in the correct positions beforehand. If you're one of those guys that tries to put more revolutions on it and you do this, it's because you're not getting in the correct position beforehand and you're forced to do that.
Right, and then I think it's important to mention when we do create this yo-yo and in this release, we need to still have a fast hand. So our hand needs to rotate fast through the bowling ball. You're not going to create a lot of RPMs if your hand is just kind of slowly guiding around. We got to get that hand to rotate quick.
Yeah, so let's throw
let's throw a shot. So Brad's going to throw a shot here.
So this first one's going to be like on top?
Let's just throw one shot, and let's just see your combination of the wrist and elbow when you execute a shot. Okay, so you can see here, you're not the biggest rev guy, but you do use a nice little combination of your wrist, your elbow, to create RPMs.
Yep.
And you're not a 500 RPM guy, but you do have, you know, a good amount of RPMs, obviously, or else you really wouldn't be able to compete on tour. And guys, we're not talking, it's not about bending the elbow this way and cupping this wrist completely, but you do have to use some combination of that to get your hand under the ball and then get in a position to where you can create that yo-yo effect.
Okay, so this next one. Am I really yo-yo in this one?
Oh, this is the chainsaw release right here.
I don't know if
Start the chainsaw.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it. Not gonna do it.
Okay, so really get into this one. Let's see if we see a difference. Okay, so more of a cupped wrist, cupped elbow in that position. I mean, it's not drastic, but it actually does. The end result is a little bit more RPMs.
No, I mean, you can obviously tell the first one went farther down the lane, and that one actually like wanted to roll as soon as it hit the lane, and it stayed on line a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video, and it's important to mention that increasing rev rate is extremely difficult. A lot of it is natural ability, creating those fast twitch muscles at a young age. But with that being said, there are some tips like the ones we have mentioned that can help you increase your revs by 20, 30 RPMs. You're not going to see 100 RPM crazy difference, but you can see an increase by implementing these changes.
Yeah, my one tip to end this video is just to make sure you stayed patient. I've been in the bowling center so many hours trying to figure out how to put more revs on the ball. It's taken me forever. But I also didn't have this video to help either. But yeah, just make sure you stay patient. Make sure you get the hours in to actually practice. If you haven't done so, follow us on social media. InsideBowling.com for merchandise.
Instagram, Patreon for lessons and more tutorials like this. So thanks, guys.